Let's go ahead and get started. So, just a quick introduction of myself, right? I'm the field CTO for Prism Access here at Palo Alto Networks. I've been in the industry for 26 years, 20 of them on the IT side. So, being a buyer and implementer, I was at GE for 8 years of those, where I ran global shared network services and was responsible for really disrupting ourselves. How do we redo this network that was cobbled together through several mergers and acquisitions over the years and make it ready for cloud, and get apps ready for mobility and things like that. So, it was a very aggressive posture, going on 9 years ago now, that we started down that journey. So, but it taught me a lot, right? It taught me a lot about what you know and what you don't know and what you kind of have to figure out. So I've tried to relay that experience over here now on the provider side, where I can have conversations with executives and those that care about cloud and cloud transformation, and making sure security is positioned right to do that. And SASE plays right into this, right? SASE, it was talked about a little bit here already, but really the idea is just, everything's got a direct internet connection right now, and everything is hanging off of that direct connection, right? So users to the resources. And when the internet is that primary means of networking, or becoming the primary means of networking pretty quickly, one true thing is holding, as far as it's not what we are used to with a private network, right? We are leveraging something that is not private, not secure, and uncontrollable, really. So the next best thing you can really do is control the transit through it and embed security with it. So with that, what are the best options to get you there? There are a lot of folks raising their hand and saying, well, we've got a SASE solution, we've got a SASE solution. But you have to really look under the hood and see what it's doing, see how that connectivity looks. How unified is it? Or are you really just cobbling a lot of things together? So our approach is a little bit more consolidated, and I'll go through that here with you all now. So before the acronym SASE was launched by Gartner in August of 2019, Prism Access in its original iteration was called Global Protect Cloud Service, and that was launched as a secure edge interconnect. The whole idea was it didn't matter where the user was, a branch or remote. We could connect them to any resource, whether it's the data center, cloud, SaaS, or web, through a single capability, a single platform. Not one product that's internet and SaaS security, another product that's private access for data center and cloud access, unified. So, can we put out there a customer instance of security that's cloud routable and gets them wherever they need to go? So that was the idea. And when we selected CloudGenix as our own SD-WAN provider over a year ago, that really formed, the foundation of what a lot of organizations are calling today SASE, right? And it's a whole idea of converging those networking elements with security embedded with them, not as an afterthought necessarily, but making sure it's holistic. So that's the approach we've always kind of taken with this since its launch. But overall, what we have to do here is we have to address these organic and consequential shifts that are impacting us right now, right? When we think about, cloud and SaaS have modernized productivity. That was an organic thing that was happening. We moved smart applications out to, services for elasticity, and mobile apps, convenience and things like that. Cloud is driving business in a lot of cases, right? Where we have big data, AI, and analytics, all going on at the same time, providing competitive, a competitive imbalance with those others in their industry. So everybody's trying to do things with cloud more, but obviously that and SaaS are something that it takes the internet to get there one way, shape, or form in a lot of cases. Digital customer experiences, things like that, especially now due to COVID, right? We've got now these consequential shifts that are, what are we doing to develop applications, products, and services for our end customers now that they can't walk into a location, right? Or now that they can't, personally, do an exchange of some kind. Everything's written for a mobile device at this point, or at least is trying to go down that path. So that's only going to amplify itself over time, because as that becomes a necessity now, it's going to become a continued convenience later. So it's not like things are going to go down this digitization path and then all back off all of a sudden. This is a new way of doing things. And we think about how users are working, right? As it was said moments ago, everybody got sent home, right? And then we started putting people back in offices here and there, and now we're maybe sending them back home again, right? Or we're not sure. We'll see how various lockdowns in various places continue, but there is some permanency to this. Every single CIO I talk to has said, look, we're going to have some work from home that's permanent, whether it's 30% of the staff in the office 1 or 2, 3 days a week at the most, and then the other 30% can come in on alternating days, whatever it is. Or if you just never want to walk into an office again, we're probably going to accommodate that, right? So that's an impact for what we're doing, right? That's an impact for remote access and making sure it's scalable and sustainable, because there's the threat prevention side that Palo has always been a part of. But now we're really trying to help out with that business continuity side and just making sure things continue to work, and not forcing our customers to make, risky decisions such as split VPN and things like that we've had to do because of capacity constraints within the data center for remote access. How do we make that better? How do we make sure that, okay, we can scale up to get your users on and working, and we're not going to have to force you to make decisions around security compromise or risk posture and things like that. So that's what we continue to try to do. So the shifts, if I boil it down at its simplest level, right, we have to figure out ways of providing secure access between a user and a resource. That's it, highest possible level. You got a user, they could be anywhere. You got a resource, data center, cloud, SaaS, doesn't matter. We have to provide access securely. So what are the 4 buckets that these really kind of fit under, right? Under most organizations, these are them. We've got employee remote access, internet and SaaS security, edge connected branch, and third-party access. These are, very typical across, probably 90% of the organizations out there. But the problem we need to solve, given both those organic and consequential shifts, are all the same, right? We have to address scalability. We have to address visibility, making sure that we're seeing as much traffic as we can, correcting ourselves from what we were doing to get users on and working in an urgent manner, and maybe getting away from that split VPN a little bit more, but getting that visibility back. And then consistency, making sure that the security posture and what the user's experiencing, when they're on-prem or off, is the same. It's not one set of rules when they're accessing something from their branch office, and another set of rules when they're at home, and then another set of rules when they're traveling. If you set, in the topic of zero trust, which I'll talk about our approach a little bit later, if you set up adaptive access properly, yeah, it can be as consistent as based on the user and their device, right? And where they're coming from. So there's a level of consistency as long as all things are consistent. But in any case, these challenges are across all use cases. They don't vary a whole lot. But traditionally, the way we've approached this is we've looked at each of these in isolation, right? And this is the product-based approach that we got ourselves into. And we didn't do anything wrong. Even when I was doing this myself, it was what it was, right? There was no such thing as a platform, at least an integrated platform. You had, some guys out there, buying a bunch of companies together, putting them under a single management interface and calling it a platform with no backend integration, no APIs at all, right? Maybe there was some type of service chaining going on or policy-based forwarding between some services, but kludgy at best. But now I think platforms are starting to come around a little bit. So it gives us an opportunity to potentially look a little bit broader, because if we don't, then we continue to chase these things in isolation, right? So we look at upgrading VPN. We look at upgrading our secure web gateways. We look at upgrading our branch security stack, and we do them all. And then we keep chasing, all right? We keep chasing that cycle around maintaining what we have in this environment and upgrading it as we go. But maybe there's a little bit better of a way that we can start to approach these things. And from the VPN or remote access perspective, yeah, this is what it looked like for a long time. Most users were in the office. We had a few at home here and there, flexible work arrangements, a bunch on the go, whether that's road warrior or something that we're trying to solve for. But now it's more like this, and it's less about, necessarily the people, right? I mean, concurrent users at the same time is a strain, but what are the tools that they're using? This is the big piece. They need to be fully productive, especially with some of these more permanent remote work arrangements going on. It's not like, okay, you're going to work from home full time and you get access to email in your, collaboration tool, or, like your chat. That's it. Or here's Salesforce access and email. That's not going to fly, obviously, especially because when we were working more collaboratively together, we were face to face a lot, right? And then once in a while we'd have somebody join in over, a Teams or a Zoom or whatever it was. But, overall, that collaboration piece is now more important, really, because we're not together, right? So it's how do we keep that level of human interaction from a distance? And so that is all these tools. And a lot of organizations are trying to make tough decisions. Well, do I split all this traffic off? Do I send it through? What do I do if I've got to run Zoom and I've got to also have Office 365 access at performance? There's a lot of trade-offs being made. So this is where SASE is really trying to help. And where we work with our customers now is to expand the focus. Instead of looking at all those areas in isolation and continuing to chase the upgrade path as you go, start going, take yourself down the path of stop looking at it from a VPN, secure web gateway type scenario and say, how do I just provide secure access to everything? Is there a tool out there that I could use, right, that's going to give me that? Get it out of that one product per use case, those single use case products, and start looking at a platform. Another key thing that I talk to a lot of execs about is they can't bury their head in the sand around risk and security posture, right? Even though a lot of us are impacted financially by what's going on, we can't just, call no joy and that's it, it's over. We have to figure out a way to modernize our IT estate, and especially security, because think of certain organizations that maybe had a 20% remote worker policy that's now 80%, so flipped completely around. You could be going from hundreds of mini gateways to thousands, right? So your attack surface is drastically increased. You can't ignore that. So maybe there's an investment you can make today that replaces something in-house right now, but then you have the ability to flip that into solving additional use cases as you go, right? And so that's where we start to see longer term value out of SASE and a platform-based play. And then you go down the path of, okay, so that's solving the problem from a use case perspective. But what about the other tangible things, right? Going from managing infrastructure capacity to leveraging cloud scale, right? And going from managing infrastructure itself, all, whether it's policies, interfaces, whatever it is, even hardware in some cases, to getting these delivered as a cloud service, right? So some of the things that our friends on the app side of IT have been doing for a long time, we're getting caught up with. That's great, better late than never, but it's something that we can start really getting serious about now that platforms do exist in our world, right? So Prism Access SASE, from our perspective on the security side, this is what it is. So it's a convergence of network and security services, and it starts with our bread and butter, right? What has been available for those of you that are Palo customers, today, or have had Palo in their environment before. All of the capabilities that are on our PA series firewalls or VM series firewalls are available as part of Prism Access because it's the same security software. What we started off as is that proprietary blend of hardware and security software. We ported that software over to standalone, so it would be hardware neutral and software based. That's what VM series is. And then we took that one step further and made it cloud agnostic. And so now it's spread across clouds that we deliver the service with, which would be AWS and GCP, as a fully meshed cloud network. So SSL decryption at scale, sandboxing with Wildfire, all of these capabilities, but combining them now with the network side, right? So SD-WAN, whether that's our own SD-WAN capability or our recent acquisition of CloudGenix, or integration with your chosen SD-WAN provider. The way of integrating these things together and making sure that the on-ramps to that secure edge interconnect are consistent is how we can start to solve these problems in a better, more intelligent way. So this gets the shift flipped around, right? Instead of going from product focus, where we're trying to upgrade things in isolation and figure out what's going on in the VPN world, and then in the proxy and internet gateway world, and then branch, topology world, how about we start to take a broader look at this, right? So we go from focusing on products to focusing on the use cases. And when we focus on, getting away from the product view into a platform view, and that say Prism Access SASE platform, it solves employee remote access. It solves the internet and SaaS security problem. It solves the edge connected branch and third-party access. This is where we actually start to get into outcome delivery over time, right? And like I said before, I had three, around scale, visibility, and consistency around what we had to solve. But now we can add one, right? The simplification of network security, which is big to a lot of organizations that are kind of strapped for not just budget for buying products, but resources to manage them, right? You can start to consolidate things down into a single interface. makes things a whole lot easier, right, for that more long-term view of what we're trying to solve for. But from the Prism Access perspective, the scale and performance, look, cloud native architecture, it scales as you need it, and it descales when you don't. Complete visibility and control. If you have a single platform that's taking all user traffic in and then letting the security cloud route it to where they need to go, data center, cloud, SaaS, or web, you don't lose visibility. You've got that entire, visibility span of control. And then consistent security and user experience. I talked about this before. If everybody's leveraging that same platform for wherever they're going, the security is consistent. There's no surprises by using, a proxy when they're in the office, and then, something else when they're at home. Maybe it's just AV and whatever endpoint security. So it changes things up a little bit, right? You can make sure that the consistency is there for your users, and then of course the simplification, like I talked about. It's ambitious, right? I'm not going to lie. You look at all this stuff, it's like, oh my God, that's so great, but I can't do this all, right? Or I can't do it all at once. No, nobody expects you to. But this is that long-term value play, right? You leverage SASE for your compelling event. What do you need to do today? Do you need to replace VPN because you're out of capacity, or there's no inherent security with it, or you're trying to figure some stuff out? Or it could be SWG replacement, right? You need to do something different with your proxies so you can have a more direct path between your users and cloud and web and SaaS, so things like that. But then over time, you just start to collapse these other services down into it, right? Because it's there. You invested in that platform, so you had an N+1, but then it's a -1, -1, -1, -1 later, to where now you're getting longer term value, and even getting the TCO to flip, right? You can actually, instead of chasing upgrades and refreshes all the time on a per product basis, leveraging a platform that does more use cases out of that single platform, you may be able to actually see that TCO go the other direction, nice and down. So that's when you start to actually get yourself, behind the unified secure access approach, which is, SASE entitlement, as I like to call it. So quickly, I'm going to go through our approach to zero trust. I won't spend too much time on this, but I think it's important, right? The zero trust network access market is dominated by software-defined perimeter organizations right now, right? That's what the Cloud Security Alliance has really kind of put their weight behind, as far as identity being the new perimeter. And that perimeter is essentially that one-to-one relationship between a user and an application at layer 7. That makes a lot of sense. That is where things are going. If you've got nothing else, you've got yourself, your identity, and then what are you trying to access? You're not trying to access a network. You're trying to access a resource. It may be on a network, but all you really care about is the resource. So those are good things. So let's take a look at that, right? So even with zero trust network access, though, layers of defense do matter, okay? And with the software-defined perimeter approach, you have zero trust of the user when they're trying to establish a connection to an application or service, right? They're trying to make that connection, and you've got a broker in the middle that is sitting here saying, okay, who are you? What device are you on? What are the latest revs? Where are you? All the context that you need out of that user to determine risk, and then allow attachment to that service or that resource. So essentially you have two layers of defense here. You've got the user, which is identity and endpoint security and whatever you have. And then you've got the destination security, whether it's application security, host security, combination of them. So really at its highest level, you have two here, okay? So that's fine. You've got two at least. But then what happens if there's compromise, right? If the user's compromised, there's credential theft, rogue insider, malicious third party, something like that, you've lost that layer of defense. Right. And you don't even have it in certain third party situations where you don't control that endpoint at all. Right. Or you have no say. You're not even authenticating them to your directory service. So there are some situations where with an SDP, you may not have any layers of defense other than the destination itself. So when that's going on, because the SDP broker itself is not actually inspecting traffic, application or session traffic, you're a sitting duck, right? This is the new matter of when, not if, right? Because it's going to happen, right? Compromise is inevitable. So our approach is to eliminate this specific concern by leveraging the Prism Access Security Cloud to not just be the broker of the session between the user and the destination, but also do inline threat and data protection. Right. So taking a look inside that session, that application traffic, and making sure that there's no threats being manually uploaded. Like a compromised endpoint by itself with malware on it is not going to crawl across a layer 7 connection to an application. It can't, because there's no network for it to be aware of to start its crawl. But what about malicious uploads, right? Or what about downloads because of certain data for data exfil because directory security was bad? By policy, by security policy, I may have access to that host or application, but what's happening on that application, if its own security is not right, the policy may not matter, right, of that broker itself. So, you got to take a little bit deeper of a look at that. So then if that user does get compromised, same scenario, right? Rogue insider, malicious third party, credential theft, where the user can be successfully imitated. Not my credentials are stolen, I'm in Chicago, and now it looks like I'm coming from Moscow. Any good SDP will cut that connection off and force a reauthentication or revalidation. But if there's good enough spoofing going on, that policy engine may have no idea that I'm not in Chicago, right? Because it can be spoofed well enough. But at least if you have inline inspection going on, you maintain another layer, right? If you've got potentially 3 layers of defense at that highest level, user, inline, and destination, one gets compromised, or the other could be true, right? User's fine, maybe, but the destination, again, bad directory security, poor application security. Without inline inspection at all, nothing's happening, right? So you really have to hedge your bets, right? Zero trust is a strategy. It's not a product, but there are products out there that can set you up for better success and mitigate further risk. And this is our approach. This is our approach that we put into everything. It's been part of our zero trust story for a long time. The creator of zero trust himself, John Kindervag from Forrester, has been a Palo employee for a few years now. So his approach to what we want to do is what we've, essentially laid that bedrock down on. So quickly, as I wrap up here, I've got just another minute or so. High level view of our architecture, just some key elements of it. Global distribution of our cloud, right? So we leverage AWS and GCP to provide this cloud service. That is a fully meshed cloud architecture with customer instances broadcast all over the world, and they're completely isolated. So there's no need for concern about customer impact. One customer has a high bandwidth event going on with several thousand users hitting a location. Another customer has 10 users hitting that same location. They're not going to be impacted, right? Because we completely isolate our customers within our cloud using our firewall-based architecture too. So that's how we're able to do all of this inspection. And on that point of zero trust, there may be applications that you say, I don't want Palo to look at that. That's fine. You exclude those from policy of our looking at it. But what if you do? You shouldn't be limited to what you can inspect or you don't by your security vendor. Don't let that be the limitation of it. Let it be your policy. Single pass architecture, same security software and single pass architecture for scanning of threats that we use across the firewall platform, whether it's hardware, software, or as a service. SSL decryption at scale, customer isolation like I talked about, multi-tenancy from the cloud management perspective. So we use APIs and automation to manage the cloud itself, and then cloud scale. Leveraging GCP and AWS means as mobile users connect into their gateways, if you do have a large bandwidth event, software push or webcast or something like that, we scale up your instance as needed as it's going on, descale it when it's over. You don't have to call us and say, hey, Palo, can you make sure we have excess capacity for this event? It just happens. And there's no back billing for that or anything like that. It's not part of the process. And finally, Prism Access, we have a global presence with it, like I said, and a key benefit of ours, because we leverage a service ourselves, we didn't build this thing and thus have to buy bandwidth for it. There's no regional surcharges for it in Southeast Asia, Australia, New Zealand, which I know is big to a lot of you guys. If you're looking at a lot of our competitors, you will have a per user security cost, for the security itself. And then you're going to be hit with the regional surcharge, because if they built their data center, they're buying their own bandwidth and they're upgrading it for each customer that they add. That bandwidth addition is going to be passed back to you as a regional surcharge. So make sure you go into that eyes wide open as you're talking to other SASE options. And then my last slide. This is how we make it look, right? Mobile users are the focus of this, but SASE is meant to collapse and consolidate a lot of those capabilities like I talked about. So our security cloud becomes the hub. Users connect in wherever they're coming from. Remote users to the right, you've got branches on the bottom left, data center to the left, cloud services in the middle. Why? Because this is a public cloud service that has native tier 1 peering with the other cloud providers built into it. So you leverage the fiber backbone of the cloud from ingress to egress, which could be a tier 1 POP. So it looks something like this. Users connect in, immediately layer 7 inspection of traffic is happening because it's our firewall-based capability that's elastic around the globe. And then in this case, fiber connection, fiber cloud backbone connections all the way back to the data center if that's where the user's going. No hairpin back out to cloud or anything like that. So if they are going to cloud or SaaS, that's a direct connection, from those tier 1 peering points. Highly efficient, very, very scalable and sustainable. That allows us to provide SLAs around SaaS performance as well within our cloud because of that fiber backbone to that tier 1 peering point. It's very fast, very nice handoff. So this is accelerating some of those cloud and SaaS initiatives. The web piece, right? So full secure web gateway capabilities, but done as a firewall. So we don't miss any traffic. We're not missing or having to put UDP traffic in a proxy bypass, right? We're able to inspect all traffic, including Office 365, inline at scale. And then the auto scaling, like I talked about. We scale up an instance with a high bandwidth event if you need it. We scale back when you don't, and nothing else required on your part for that. So I wanted to get through that quick to make sure there was time at the end for questions. I do appreciate your time once again, and I'll hand this back over to Enablis.